started here. The potential for this district to host, many hundreds of millions of ounces of silver, I think is very possible, very real. And then for us to take that into production is so rapid. I think it'll surprise the market how quickly we can do that. So 2022 is going to be a very exciting year for the company.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Inside the Markets Extra presented by StockPulse.com. We are more than honored to be sitting down today with Michael Konnert of Vizsla Silver. He's the founder there. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Justin. Very happy to be on the show here and excited to talk about Vizsla today.
Pleasure is all ours. What's new at Vizsla?
What's new with Vizsla is that we're still doing what we've been doing all year, which is aggressively drilling. But what's really new is that we're finding more and more high grade at Napoleon and Tajitos. And to be honest, those two veins that we're drilling here as part of an overall large scale exploration program at our 100% owned Panuco project in Mexico has exceeded our expectations. And we're extremely excited about what we're seeing here at the Napoleon and the Tajitos veins at Panuco. But it's all part of a larger district scale exploration program. So what's new is that we're really just pushing very hard against pushing hard to get our resource together and put out in Q1 of 2021. That'll be 2022, sorry, and that'll be the initial resource for the company, focused entirely on that Napoleon and Tajitos area.
For people who don't know about that area, can you explain some facts about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get into this perhaps a little bit later in a recap of the year today on this interview, but we've consolidated this district here for the very first time in Sinaloa, Mexico. This is a silver district that's been known about for over 450 years. It has all the hallmarks, the criteria essentially of a large scale, significant major high grade system in Mexico. And we've basically taken that out of the hands of local miners and consolidated this district for the first time. And we focused our drilling over the last year and a half on one vein at first, and then a second vein as we made a discovery there. And that vein initially was Napoleon. We made one of the highest grade silver discoveries in recent years there at Napoleon. And now we've stepped out along strike, and it's essentially a 2-kilometer long corridor of continuous mineralization from surface down to about 500 meters. So a huge panel of mineralization there at Napoleon. And then Tajitos is just about 500 meters to the east of Napoleon. And Tajitos is another very long, almost a kilometer now in strike vein that drops down about 400 meters. So these veins are both open at depth and along strike here. And the grades that we're seeing there are spectacular as well. Both of these have average width of over 3 meters and an average grade close to 500 grams silver equivalent. So on a GT basis, that's top quartile in Mexico of high grade average widths and grades there. So really some spectacular grades at Napoleon and Tajitos, as well as a huge amount of mineralization. But what's really exciting about that is that these two veins, Napoleon and Tajitos, are only 5% of the overall vein corridor that we know about. So 1/20th. So there's 20 times the amount of vein corridors there, vein strike, as we see at Napoleon and Tajitos. So for me, what I like to always say is we're just getting started here at this district. It's just starting.
Tell us about 2021 at Vizsla Silver.
Well, 2021 was a year of multiple re-ratings, multiple catalysts, and basically a fundamental change in the value of the company. And when I talk about that fundamental change, what happened essentially was we had the conviction to pull the trigger on the options, to accelerate the options that we had. In that basically the 12 months prior, we including our financing in spring, we raised over $110 million for the company. We used that money essentially to, first of all, drill drill Napoleon, make new discoveries, extend along strike here at Napoleon for almost 2 kilometers of strike. And then we accelerated the option. So we now own the entire district 100%. That includes all of the mineral tenures that the concessions that we have here. That includes HEDO agreements and access agreements. It also includes production infrastructure, including a past producing mill called El Coco that was had a nameplate capacity of about 500 tons per day. So what we've done essentially in 2021 is go from a company that had an option on a district and was hoping to make a discovery and maybe had just made a discovery in early 2021 to a company that now owns an entire producing district here in Mexico. We've shown the pathway to very significant resources on just 5% of our existing vein corridor. And we have a mineral resource estimate coming out in 2022. So it was transformative for the company. The stock went from essentially just about $1, just over $1 to about $3 and almost $3.50 this year, but now it's trading around $3. And set ourselves up now, still have a significant amount of cash, about $45 million in the bank, no debt, no obligations. And the pathway here to run very hard next year in 2022. I think 2021 was a year for us to set up and get ready basically, because 2022 will be a transformative year for the company.
What do you have planned for 2022?
Well, we have our initial resource that we'll put out in Q1 by the end of Q1. That'll be a major catalyst, major opportunity for re-rating for the company. If you look at the price that our comparable companies on our peer comp chart, what they get in terms of enterprise value per ounce of a resource, I suspect that our market cap has the potential to re-rate multiple times what we see right now. Now, as I touched on, that's based on that resource that we'll be putting out is based on just such a small portion of the overall district, that what I get the most excited about is finding more and more silver and gold here at the property. And so 2022, in the last 4 months, we've been focused on this resource. We've been drilling really in those resource areas on Napoleon and Tajitos. Now, what we're going to focus on is finding, more sources of large, more potential areas of large resources, which is to say, trying to find another Napoleon, another Tajitos in the district. And the way that we'll do that is by taking some of those rigs that we were using on the resource drilling, moving to other targets that we've identified, like San Antonio, like Animas, many other targets across the district, and then also finding new targets, including the Josephine vein that we found with electromagnetics. And we're going to fly the entire property by the end of Q1 with airborne electromagnetics. And I suspect that airborne EM will give us an opportunity to go and target new areas, new potential areas for the resource. So on one hand, we're going to have the foundational valuation based on a resource, but on the second hand, we're going to have an incredible opportunity to find more and more gold and silver here at the property with our modern exploration techniques. I should say this is the first time that anybody's had modern exploration techniques applied to this property.
What are the implications of that?
Well, the implications of that, I would say, one only really needs to look back at what happened here at Napoleon and Tajitos to see what could potentially happen if we explore the rest of the district, or when we explore the rest of the district. Because as I said, this is consolidated for the very first time, in its history, 450-year history. I simply put, I think the implication is that we have on hand here what could very well be a famous Mexican silver district, like in the veins of a Peñoles or Zacatecas or Fresnillo. The discoverer of the Panuco district discovered 2 other silver districts historically before he died, actually, in Panuco. in the 1500s, and that was Fresnillo and Durango. He basically made the discoveries of those major, now they're million-person cities in Mexico centered around silver mines. This was the last one basically to be consolidated. And we have a saying in Mexico that, all the major silver fields, they're not discovered anymore, they're consolidated, because people know about them, but they've just, had a hard time putting them together. And that's something that we've done here. So the implication, I think, is that we could potentially find hundreds of millions of ounces of silver here, silver equivalent. And as I said, we're just getting started. So applying these new tools to the district, I think, is something that I'm very, very excited about. And I think that shareholders and investors can be very excited about. I think offers a huge amount of potential for re-rating of the share price here.
What's your view of the industry in general heading into 2022?
I think metal prices, the rise in the metal price is inevitable. There's too many factors happening right now. The setup is the best that I've ever seen, and I'm a bit of a historian on these things. The best I've ever seen, in history, essentially. It's a prolific amount of money printing, which is fantastic for the currency aspect of silver and gold. And then you have the growth on the demand side because of electric vehicles for silver, for solar panels for silver, for soldering, these type of things for silver. And then, to add to that, you have massive supply disruptions, basically on a systemic level down in South America, where a lot of silver byproduct comes from. So, and you could apply the same concept to gold, to copper, to nickel. I personally believe, and I'm putting pretty much my entire net worth into, these companies that look for and produce these metals, because I think there's never been a better time to be invested in the metal complex.
Prolific money printers. Any other comments on the setup from a historical perspective?
Well, I know a lot of people have been discouraged. We had a fantastic 2020 after the recovery from the initial kind of COVID crash. I know a lot of people made an absolute fortune in that run up, and then perhaps gave some of it back in this kind of subsequent year. But if you look at if you look at charts of bull markets historically, we've seen ups and downs. If it was easy, everybody would be rich. So from my point of view, it's picking the stocks that you think are going to do well. It's buying them and buying them on the dip, and and preparing for when the narrative shifts. And I think the narrative will shift and be very positive for the metal complex, in 2022 and onward.
Any other comments about Vizsla Silver as we head into 2022?
Well, for me, it's and I was just down there. I actually ended up taking my family for the first time to see the project a couple of weeks ago. And the funny thing is that you drive onto the property on one of the two main highways that crisscross the property. So access is excellent, from Vizsla. And then you drive on and you drive for a little bit, and then you get to Napoleon, then you off the highway, and you keep going. And by the time you drive for about 30 minutes, you're halfway through the property, and you're looking back, and you just, you get the sense of scale there. So for me, what's very important to take away from this is that we've consolidated this true district for the first time. It's absolutely enormous. And we're already well on our way of finding an industry leading and putting out an industry leading resource in Q1. But like I said, we're just getting started here. The potential for this district to host, many hundreds of millions of ounces of silver, I think, is very possible, very real. And then for us to take that into production is so rapid. I think it'll surprise the market how quickly we can do that. So 2022 is going to be a very exciting year for the company.
We've had the honor of sitting down today with Michael Konnert, founder of Viszla Silver. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us today.
Thank you, Justin. I really appreciate that, and looking forward to catching up in the future here.
Likewise, pleasure is all ours. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this edition of Inside the Markets Extra, presented by StockPulse.com.